The carnivore diet is unsustainable and I can no longer continue with this. That's the way I would be thinking if I listened to what dietitians and the food industry were telling me. In this video, what I want to do is talk about the carnivore diet, my experience with it, and also 7 of the myths that we constantly hear coming from dietitians and the food industry that don't stand up to even the simplest kind of scrutiny. So guys, if you like these kind of videos, you can support me simply by doing 2 things. Smash the like button and also subscribe if you haven't already. I'm grateful for the support. Okay, so let's get into it. So 10 months ago, I started the carnivore diet. I didn't start the diet intentionally, I just fell into it. And I think that's very similar to what happens with a lot of people. And the reason is we don't go out there thinking that meat is going to be the solution to our problems. We don't go out there thinking that eating 10, 12, 14 eggs a day is going to be the solution to our health problems. And so when you start the diet, you might start like I did by going low carb or keto first. And what happens when you go low carb or keto is you start to realize that a lot of the problems that you had been experiencing over the last months or years start to dissipate. That back pain that you had or that constant feeling of lethargy you had throughout the day suddenly goes away. Suddenly you notice a spring in your step that just wasn't there before. And so everything's going really well and you're happy with the results that you've had. You're losing weight and you're feeling better. But then, for one reason or another, the already low amount of carbohydrate that you're eating starts to get lower. For me, it was working out why I had a stomach upset. For other people, it might simply be there's nothing around at the time, so you skip carbohydrates for a few days. But ultimately, what happens is we find ourselves eating only eggs, meat, and maybe some dairy. And then in short order, what we start to notice is that we are feeling even better than we had been before. So we've noticed now that we went on keto, we got better, and then we stopped eating carbs entirely, and we started to feel even better again. And the thing is, for most of us, no one's actually telling us about this. No one's lecturing to us on TV or at school about how we need to reduce carbs. What we've done is we've found something out. We've found that our body responds well to a particular way of eating completely by accident. But we feel better, so we just keep doing it. And then what happens is you get a lot of naysayers around you, the dietitians, the friends, the whoever telling you, you're going to die. This is not a healthy way of eating. You need to cut it out. You need to eat your breads, your pastas, your vegetables, your fruits, etc., etc. But we'll come to those naysayers in a moment. Now for me, as I say, I've been on the diet for 10 months now. At no time in those 10 months have I ever sat and thought to myself, you know what? I'd love to be eating some carbs. I'd love to be drinking that alcohol that my friends are drinking. I'd love to be eating that ice cream. And that's the great thing about this way of eating. It appears that once you actually get into this way of eating and your body becomes fat adapted, those cravings for those things that you thought you could never live without just disappear. So anyway, over the last 10 months, what's happened to me? Well, brain fog has got better, my focus has got better, concentration's got better. I no longer have gum disease, I no longer have bad breath, I no longer have bleeding gums. My arthritis is gone. I now have more strength on my right-hand side where I previously have suffered a stroke and had weakness there. My balance is better and walking has improved. Following the stroke that I had a terrible limp, and that has now reduced. I still limp, but it's nowhere near as noticeable as it used to be. And just before anyone says, but you had a stroke and you still want to continue with this way of eating, this was nothing to do with the way I was eating. This happened when I was 17 years old and it's the result of a hemorrhage that happened with an aneurysm. My sleep's better. My productivity is better. The list goes on, and I could talk endlessly about this. But what I want to touch on in this video is what kind of advice you'll get from dietitians, the food industry, TV personalities, people like that. And I had to think about it, and I thought about the 7 most common myths that are propagated by dietitians, the food industry, TV personalities, people like that. And these are myths that we just listen to and we just accept and we just absorb into our daily lives. But when we actually sit back and think about it, even for a few seconds, they don't stand up to any level of scrutiny. Any level of critical thinking can poke holes in these things. Okay, the first one is that seed oils or vegetable oils are heart healthy. Many of these even have a healthy tick or a heart tick of approval in the countries where they're sold. And what the food industry and dietitians will tell you is that vegetable oils or seed oils are so much more healthy for you and good for your heart than animal fats. But this just makes no sense. When you think about the amount of processing and chemicals that are involved in producing seed oils or vegetable oils versus producing beef tallow or lard, it just makes no sense. When you have to wash the oil in petroleum-based products, when you have to bleach the oil, when you have to deodorize the oil, and you still have other processes that need to be done, it doesn't sound like a product that is heart healthy. What other species of animal in the wild eats bleached, acid-washed products? Number 2 is you need carbs. My question is simple. Why? For energy. Fat gives me enough energy. I don't need energy from carbohydrate. But your brain needs glucose. And that point is where a lot of people stumble. A lot of people feel like, that's right, I need to be feeding my brain. I need to be eating carbohydrates to feed my brain. And that's where a lot of people start to doubt keto or low carb or carnivore. But think about this. Go back thousands and thousands, millions of years to when we were not as smart as we supposedly are now, when we hadn't evolved. What makes our brain any different to that of a wolf or some kind of mammoth or whatever it is? What makes our brain any different that we would need to rely on processed food to provide us with energy? What makes our brain any different that it would be evolved to rely on seasonal vegetables and seasonal fruits? And of course, it didn't evolve that way. Our body can produce as much glucose as required by the brain through gluconeogenesis. The next one is meat causes cancer. My answer to this is simple. Why are we the only species this would happen to? You don't see any lions or tigers in the cancer ward. And if meat causes cancer, why, when there's been a global reduction in meat consumption based on dietary guidelines, do cancer rates continue to go up? Next one is keto is unsustainable. This one is a comment repeated by the food industry, by dietitians and people like that, just to get that feeling into people's minds. The more they say it, the more people just automatically believe it. The more people say, you just need to eat your 5 vegetables a day, the more people believe that's the truth. I know I certainly did. I was never good at it, but I certainly believed that to be the truth because it was repeated so often. So if we just repeat keto is unsustainable often enough, then people will just believe it. And how does that benefit anybody? Well, it benefits the food industry, it benefits dietitians, because anyone who goes onto a keto diet will always have that doubt in their mind, this is not sustainable, I'm not going to be able to do this long term. And the more likely you are to be questioning yourself, the more likely it is that you're not going to follow through. The more likely it is you're going to fall off the wagon. You can convince yourself of anything. So someone can implant the seed of doubt about something, and when that's reinforced over and over and over and over again, you convince yourself of it. And then those same people can just say to you, see, I told you it was unsustainable. I knew you were going to eat that ice cream. The next one is you need to eat fruit every day. So some people will argue this is for energy, but the main argument I hear is that it's for vitamin C. And this is something that a lot of people can worry about, and it's certainly something that I worried about when I've done low carb or keto in the past. I've always tried to seek out the vegetables that I believed had the most vitamin C in there, because we're always told we need to have this much vitamin C every day. But it turns out if you're not consuming carbs, if you're not consuming foods that turn into glucose in your body, then the requirement for vitamin C is much, much, much lower. And that requirement can be met through your consumption of meat. If it couldn't be, I should have scurvy now. The next one is LDL should be low. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about this because I have talked about this in other videos, but LDL is not something that has to be low in your system. And in fact, if you're eating saturated fat, then there's a good chance that your LDL is going to be higher. And if you're consuming carbohydrate, then there's a good chance that the LDL that you have that's maybe higher is going to be glycated. It's going to be oxidized, so it's going to be damaged, and that's where the problem lies. If you're not consuming carbohydrate, then that LDL is not going to get damaged. And finally, we shouldn't be eating meat. We are naturally plant eaters. And even if this was the case, which it's not, the implication that we should be eating only plants is that we should also be eating processed food. No one that says we should only be eating plants is only eating carrots and celery and cucumbers and pineapples. They're also eating Beyond Burgers. They're also eating genetically modified soy. They're also eating processed wheat. They're also eating vegetable oils. And there is just no way that there was ever an intention for us to consume products like this. Kind of like saying we're now on the 20th generation of this sports car. It's about time that we were able to run it on ice cream. This isn't Back to the Future. We don't have cars that can run on banana peels and garbage, and humans can't do it either. Guys, thanks for watching. Please don't forget to click like and subscribe, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video.